Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff hit it.
Welcome to the counselor's office.
That's right. We're back in the counselor's office. I'm Mr. Gaming Counselor. We're back with the Counselor Reacts, and today we are going to react to a video by Aztecross. He's a Destiny streamer, or streamer content creator, and I was on Twitter, and this topic is starting to come up, and I actually have some thoughts. Did weapon crafting ruin Destiny 2? I think it's a very interesting topic, and I do have some hot takes. As per usual, you can expect me to have hot takes when it comes to Destiny 2.
I'm telling you, dude, I have a good feeling I'm gonna get something good out of this legendary.
I actually kind of remember this guy.
Guess what I got? Got a 1,000-yard stare.
Oh, 1,000-yard stare. I mean, that's technically still in the game. Okay. So where are we going with this?
I put it on. I didn't look at it. Shut up. No, I didn't.
He must have gotten a really good roll.
Shut up.
Oh, yep. He got, it looks like, what? He gets speed reload, snapshot, and then he got the aim assist one. So that actually is pretty juiced for a sniper.
Oh my god.
And he's got a mid zoom, which is what you wanted. You wanted mid zoom with a sniper.
This right here was a clip of Incooch back in the day in Destiny 1 being blessed by the RNG gods.
Yeah, I mean, that was just
Destiny 1
juiced.
in general was riddled with these type of reactions. From Galahorns dropping for the very first time to that.
I mean, I actually had, what was it? Thorn dropped. And unfortunately, I had the quest and I did it. Like, I didn't know and understand, like, the hype of Thorn. I stopped playing D1 at the beginning, so I could have experienced the hype of Thorn at its destructive capabilities.
God roll IS Luna.
Oh yeah, I forgot, was it one in the chamber or something like that? That was such a good perk on hand cannons.
God rolls and rarity back in D1 truly meant something.
So I think there's a little nostalgia in the rose tinted glasses, and I've heard this too many times. I don't think people realize that you still have those moments like raids. Granted, people are like, but you can craft them, but you can't craft rated weapons right off the rip. So most people want to get god rolls as early as possible, so they can have them, test them out, see if they're worth using, whether you wanted to craft them or not. And so for some, the god roll is the only roll they have. Like, they don't have a lot of time to continue to raid every week, so they don't care about crafting. But then you have dungeons. Dungeons are not craftable except duality. So when they release a new dungeon, it is literally just random rolls. I do think there's another problem that does impact dungeons and the importance of rolls, and we'll get to that in a minute.
And I would argue and say that it meant something well into Forsaken, because I still remember getting absolutely hyped when one.
Yeah, Forsaken had some juice stuff. I can remember wanting to get the god roll shotgun. I forgot what it's called. The shotgun, the Kinetic shotgun. It was so good. It was the shotgun, the premier shotgun for Forsaken PvP. If you had that shotgun, you were sliding as a Titan with one eye mask. You were just a god.
Months after the release of Forsaken for it to finally
I got mine very early in. Not only did I had one eye mask at its prime, I also had Not Forgotten in its prime. Those two together were just spicy.
Out of Destiny since its inception. But the argument is, was it better or worse when things were dictated by RNG?
Yeah.
Did you actually put up this tweet?
I mean, I will say that a lot of people want to completely remove crafting and focusing and all that stuff and just go back to D1. But I think people, again, have those rose-tinted glasses. They don't understand how bad RNG was. Sure, the reason why people had these immense experiences is because they would go months before they got the exotic they were hunting. And so it was that small drip of dopamine in the brain. It was like, oh my god, I finally got it. That's because you're deprived for months. And we also forget that how many people didn't have certain guns. Like, for example, Thorn. Thorn was powerful. People cried. It's not fair. They've got it. I don't have it. People were rioting. And so what ended up happening is they would nerf exotics more than they do now. Like, people do not realize how many times and how bad they would nerf exotics. And we would complain about, like, why are you nerfing these exotics? It's because it's not, they're trying to make it balanced around the fact that not everyone has these exotics. And that's a problem, right? When everyone has it, then you can balance it around everyone having it. But when it's only outliers that have it, and they will say, well, if it's really rare, we don't have to balance it because it's only niche. No, they nerf things that people didn't have. And they wanted to make it fair because so many people complained. Well, it's not fair. People are winning trials. When people are doing better, they're winning raid races because they've got Galahorn and we don't. So what do you have to do? You have to make sure it's balanced. More than, and instead of balancing things that they do now, for the most part, they do some fairly good balancing. Back then, they just murdered things. I mean, they still murder things like Amakara's fine, like in PvE, it's being murdered. They did that a lot in general in D1.
With this clip of Incooch stating that videos like this are exactly why I prefer RNG drops compared to crafting, since nothing is nearly as exciting as the drops you could get in D1 and pre-crafting Destiny 2. And I think that's a shame. Bungie should have just doubled down on loot focusing instead of giving free god rolls. Now, Demon Joe isn't though.
I mean, I think also loot focusing is a sketchy road as well, because I think you lead to the same road. Loot focusing does take longer, but at the same time, and that's another thing, you have to balance time. Like, for instance, they want to increase how much it takes to make one weapon with Crucible engrams, and you can't craft those. So I have 99 engrams because I spent time playing the game. And next season, I won't have 99 chances at a weapon. I'll only have 33. And so I spend all that time and I don't get a god roll. It feels really bad. Because I did not get the roll I wanted until 99, which I'll put a video up to kind of show that. I'll do some other time. But for now, like, RNG is a very fickle thing. So if you make it go all the way back to RNG, a lot of people are going to leave the game. So you need a balance, especially with focusing, like, because they can make it very expensive, they can make it very cheap, and if you make it too cheap, then everyone has a god roll. If you make it too expensive, then only the top people who can spend hundreds of hours can get these god rolls. Like, it would be more annoying for me, but I would probably still get the god rolls, whereas people who are new, well, you'd be stuck never having a god roll unless RNG blessed you. And I could see why they would be upset with that.
Only one saying this. Many people actually agree with him. Paul Tassi literally tweeting out that crafting was ultimately a mistake, and I will die on that hill. This is a common sentiment, which is pitted two
okay. Yeah.
sides against each other. Those in favor of weapon crafting and those in favor of pure RNG.
So here's my opinion. I think it should have been the opposite. How it is. I think if you were going to introduce crafting, I think it either one of two things. One, it should have just been seasons only, because remember, it's only seasonal FOMO. So you can make it to where you craft it anytime you have a chance of getting it. There's no FOMO because you can craft them. So that would be a perfect way of, like, not having sunsetting or, you know, unintentional sunsetting, because you could still get those items, right? That sounds fair to me, right? We can all agree that helps anyone who wants to get into Destiny catch up. Oh, a couple seasons ago, this is God roll was here. Oh, well, you could still get that gun, you know, especially if you don't have time to do the 5-10 raids or the 5 dungeons, and, you know, having the seasonal weapons that aren't, like, overly broken, but they're some juicers. Like, people love the hand cannon in the season from Season of the Witch. you know, that's a good PvP weapon if you can't get like a God Roll Izaluna or a God Roll Fatebringer or a God Roll Palindrome or a God Roll Igneous Hammer. Like, if you couldn't get those, at least you could get the seasonal crafted. That is, in my opinion, not as good as all these other guns, but it's still good enough that you could still go into PvP, play, have a good time. I think seasonally, that is where it should have been for seasons. The alternative is the other way around. Like I said, instead of having like raids and having some of the dungeons, which they cut that off, which is good. Any like in-game should have not have crafting. I think it should have just been open world drops that you would eventually get rid of, right? Like the whole point of having like a bunch of massive pool, like even I would say even like Vanguard and Crucible, with the massive list of perks you can make, that's great for casuals, right? You don't give them, you give them a lot of choices, but they aren't like the pinnacle weapons. Like you can make some juicy rolls. Like there's some good stuff you could totally have, but they're not the thing, right? I know we're only a minute in and I'm talking about it because I think it's really important. I get my point, and just not Aztecross's, is if you take like Vanguard, you take Gambit, you take Crucible, you take those generic weapons, and they don't have like OP they don't have OP origin traits, but they have the origin traits, and you can craft them and then focus those for just the casual people who want to get into Destiny, who can only have enough time to play a little bit here, a little bit there. Whereas the gamers like me, for like trials, for GMs, which GMs is fine the way it is, dungeons, raids, all that should be RNG based. In my opinion.
Drops. Now guys, this is not the first time we have seen this argument, and I'm not even talking Destiny 2. Back inside of Destiny 1 during House of Wolves, we had weapon re-rolling.
Yeah, I mean,
weapon to the gunsmith and re-roll it. It would cost some multiplight, some weapon parts, some glimmer, but you had an opportunity to get a god roll. Now, my people in the weapon crafting department, you may look at this and think,
yeah,
what a fantastic feature.
It is.
At the time, many hardcore Destiny players.
And that's the thing, like, I think there's always going to be that sub community of 1%ers, and you could consider me a 1, maybe a 2%er, and I'm saying I'm a 2%er because I don't do duos, I don't do solo raids, or I don't do those challenges because I don't care. It's a waste. I think it's a waste of time personally, and I have a full-time job. And I want to play for fun, and it's just not fun to me to do that. I do solo dungeons flawlessly because that's a challenge enough, and it's geared toward that. Solo, like 3-man raids were never intended that way, so it's like I don't need to hold my PP in my hands and try to show everyone. Like that's what I don't care, right? If you do that, that's your free time, your life, whatever. But I think we don't need to gear the game around those people. I think the overall majority should be in the picture. I think for the masses, if we look at the top 1% who's always going to complain about anything that isn't their way, especially content creators and streamers who aren't being pandered to because it's their job, right? They will always complain. If it impacts their job, they will always complain. And that's the thing. They play an absurd amount of hours that most normal gamers, and what's not even healthy. I mean, they play technically, psychologically, they play more video games than what is technically considered healthy. And so they are not the people that we should base the game around. It should be the overall majority. The 2%ers, right? The 2%ers like me, the 10%ers, the 50%ers, whatever percentage you want to throw out there, though the majority is who you should be looking at, not the 1%ers, because the game will never satisfy them unless it's geared 100% to them. They will always complain. So I'm going to skip ahead of this.
Celebrating his RNG by getting after the expansion had released. And even though there are tons of clips out there of people being excited when those things finally dropped, whatever that weapon or god roll is, there are a number of clips that you don't see of folks getting absolutely shafted by RNG.
There you go. He's pointing it out right there. The rose tinted glasses where you're grinding, you've wasted how many hours of your life? Again, it's just that small dopamine. The reaction is bigger because you spent more time. And I think the satisfaction of your time is not well spent. Especially, and here's the big thing, you would spend hundreds of hours farming, hoping to get a god roll weapon or get an exotic, and then here comes Bungie and they nerf it. Like, think about now where it's easy to get weapons and exotic armor, and how often they are nerfing him. If we went back to a complete RNG system, even without focusing as well, like how upset would you be that you wasted your time? I mean, I'm not even talking about casuals. I'd be triggered that I spent so many hours farming to get something, and then I finally got it, and then, oh, it's being nerfed. Thanks for wasting my time. So, I mean, I think it's better to have easier routes to achieve the exotics and the weapons than, and if you make, I know exotics are supposed to be a big thing. And that's why I think it's okay to have exotic weapons in raids be like the old ways, where it's not guaranteed, right? Where it may take you time, because then you still get that dopamine, and it's a pinnacle exotic. I personally think it should be where we get new seasonal exotics. Not just weapons, but also armor. I mean, imagine having to do master raids to get a chance at an exotic armor piece to drop, right? There, of course, it would trigger a good chunk of people, especially all the casuals. But I don't think any of the middle to upper tier players would mind, because it's something to chase. And it would be kind of raid themed, right? That's a key thing. It would be not just like if someone put Graviton forfeit in. What's one that doesn't make sense? Last Wish. You're like, why was this okay? What? Why? Why does this make sense? No, it'd be a actual exotic armor piece, kind of geared with the kind of theme of mysticism as Last Wish, or I don't know. I'm brainstorming, throwing stuff in the void right now, right?
RNG and Destiny. And let me just say, RNG is a fickle thing.
It is.
We literally ran. It's the reason why we have lost sectors that drop specific loot and exotics in rotation. And now we have a knockout system for exotics.
So here's the thing. If I don't know, I like the knockout system because it does reward your time, because there's so many exotics. So I think whatever they do, I think a knockout system should always be in place. Whether we go back to complete RNG or not, I think a knockout system should always be in place.
Biggest thing being weapon crafting. You see, weapon crafting says, hey, yeah, you may not get that god roll, but if you keep working hard enough, you'll eventually get enough deep sights to then craft your very own roll. Now, personally, guys, I completely ate up weapon crafting simply because RNG has been so punishing to me. And secondly, craftable rolls are just better. Sure, some of the enhanced perks don't really give you all that much. I'm looking at you, precision instruments, but there are some amazing benefits that enhanced traits offer.
So that's the thing. I think, and here's my honest opinion, they're not rolling this system back. It's not happening. What they could do, I think he says it, right?
And have the ability to actually control exactly what you want on your weapon.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like myself has been a blessing, but you don't necessarily get that freak out moment. No one's really up and down when they finally get that red border over, so eat it. Instead,
no, but I did have that moment when I got a Song of You for the first time to drop, and it had reconstruction target lock. Obviously, I would like bait and switch, but that's my example, right? I still was excited because I couldn't craft it, but I could still use it because it could take me multiple weeks before I can actually craft it or farm for the master version, the depth version.
They go and actually check how many red borders they got. And there it is, guys. A checklist. That is what Destiny is kind of turned.
I think it's a checklist based on the activities that are available, right? Raid loot, GM loot, new weapon, farm for god roll new weapon from the Crucible, if it's good, the Nightfall weapon rotation, do trials for the weapons, like that's pretty much what's happened. Like, I know Messenger's out right now, but pulse rifles are just very mid, in my opinion, right now, compared to, like, other options. They're just not as hot in PvP, in my opinion. Plus, I've already got plenty of god rolls of Messenger, so I didn't play trials this week. But it was essentially a checklist, right? You have, I want this weapon, I want this weapon, I want this weapon, and once you get it, you're done, right? Or you've achieved it. Like, I've gotten rank 11 for Guardian ranks. I've got my seal for the season. I've got my seal for the raid or the dungeon for the season, whatever it is. And then once you're done, you go play other things. Like, I think that's just how seasons are in Destiny right now. I think there's no reason outside of maybe PvP to come back out. I mean, like, there's not a single GM in rotation that I see as fun. And there's no reason to do basic Nightfalls. Like, there's zero incentive to do basic crap. And that's the problem with Destiny. There's no incentive to do the basic stuff. Zero. That's why all my weapons and stuff is geared to endgame. GMs. If it can't be used in GMs, get rid of it. If it can't be used in day one raids, get rid of it. If it can't use in trials, get rid of it. Like, that's how it is, right? Because the basic stuff doesn't matter. So that's why you focus on what does.
Into a checklist of things to do and acquire. You get craftable weapons. And
I'm just going to skip ahead because he's talking about this.
Exotics to me feel really watered down. Go look in
So he's not wrong about that. The exotics feel watered down.
your inventory right now, guys. I guarantee you have a number of exotic Ingrams just piled up. Exotics are just as common as legendaries.
So I don't think the issue in that the fact that there's too many exotics. I think that's more of the lifetime of the game. And you've got to remember in D1, they sunset exotics, right? They sunset the exotics. You just couldn't use them anymore. Weapons, I believe, armor. I don't remember specifically. It's been a hot minute. But they sunset exotics, right? Weapons and exotics and armor. Yeah, they sunset armor. You'd have to get new sets of armor. And so that's how D1, it always felt like there wasn't a whole lot. But D2, even since the inception of time, D2 exotics have stuck around. They've never been sunset. And they never were going to be sunset. So I think crafting and the rarity of exotics has nothing to do whether they're watered down or not. I think it's just a choice that Bungie has on making bad exotics. Now, we've gotten some recently decent ones, like the Void Grasp. Warlock Gloves is pretty good. That's probably the only one of this season that I can think of. The Hunter one, throwing the Moth one, is cool. It's neat, but not that good. And Titan, for some reason, I don't remember what the Titan does. Probably very forgettable, whatever it is. Maybe I'm coping. I don't know. But exotics are 100% Bungie's choice, whether they're weak. And I don't think it has anything to do about rarity or source. Because, again, going back to, if it's too good, they'll nerf it. And so if they make it harder to get and you spend more time going for it and then you get it and you're like, oh, all right, I got this, and it's nerfed, it's a really bad situation. And I think that's a fear that we all have, is if I put time and investment in this build, is it just going to get nerfed by Bungie? Same thing with exotics. If I use this armor piece or I chase for this armor piece, is it just going to get nerfed? Like Amakara Spine. If I want to use that in PvE, it's now being murdered because Bungie doesn't know how to do their job.
And I know, I got somebody right now that plays 2-3 hours a week that's like, yo, Cross, speak for yourself. Not all of us get to play this game every day.
Again, I don't think ease of use has anything to do with exotics. I think it's just Bungie's bad design.
Look,
And the fact that we don't have sunsetting. So it's not making everything fresh.
But at the same time, you should not kill the rarity and uniqueness of drops within Destiny just to appeal to the cat.
Again, that's why I think there should be exotic armor attached to raids. I think there should be exotic armor attached to dungeons, these in-game places. Heck, even do, you could say, getting 7 or 50 round wins, you get a special exotic from trials. And you don't even have to get flawless. You just need 50 round wins or 25 round wins, and you can get this, and you just keep farming trials, playing trials, winning rounds, and then you can always, at the 25th count, you get one of those exotics to drop and see whether it's a good roll or not. Again, it's still chance by how long it takes for you. You can still get it whether you get a good roll or not. Same thing with raids. You can make it completely RNG based, but I think that's a bad idea for trials. For raids, you can make it RNG based like regular armor. You're gonna have people that hate it and they're gonna be upset, and then if it's not good, people are gonna complain like, oh well, this is crap, why am I wasting my time farming for this armor? There's also the fear that if you farm it, it's just gonna get nerfed. It's same thing with weapons, but usually more than not, they don't get nerfed to oblivion unless they're anarchy, because no one uses that gun anymore. No one really uses Terrorbutt either. And God forbid they buff it in PvE.
Casual player base. But here's the thing, guys. I'm going to lay it on you right now. I'm going to give you the truth of why weapon crafting exists. Number one, it works with Bungie's seasonal.
Exactly. Like I said, it works with seasonal model. I think that's okay. I think no one would complain if it was just seasonal weapons that had crafting. If that was it. I don't think raids should ever have crafting. Now, I do think master raids 100% should have enhancing adepts. Because no one will still touch, even if you couldn't craft a god roll base raid, no one would still, if you got a god roll base, no one would trace the adepts. No one. No one would. I'm just saying it because you're always guaranteed what you want from like a GM. You know, if you beat it and you've gotten platinum, you're getting what you want. And especially double loot week, you're getting like 2 of them. And they also come with double perks. You know you're getting it. However, raid, there's no way of guaranteeing you're going to get that weapon with that roll. So I do believe RNG still exists, but I still think adepts should be able to be enhanced. I think that is the only place where enhancement should exist is master raids. That way it gives unique RNG chance at getting a spicier roll that you can only get from master. You can't get enhanced perks, period. You can if you're going to keep crafting, you can't get enhanced perks anywhere except for adept raid weapons that you can then craft, you know, with the perks. That's my opinion.
Model. You see, Bungie doesn't really have to overthink things when it comes to bringing us a new.
And that would satisfy the PvP sweat lords, right? Like I think the hardcore community would accept that because that has something that's RNG for them to chase. They can min max. Whereas anyone who's a casual, you can still play the base game, still get the gun and roll that you want. You still can be okay.
Game mode cycle in, game mode cycle out.
Yep.
Whether it's deep dive, be on the activity itself. Is the activity fun? Is this an activity worth doing just out of the sake of enjoyment?
And that's another thing. Like, yeah, if you tied specific exotics and stuff like that to certain activities, like they've already tried that with the Wellspring. God, I hate Wellspring. I absolutely hate it, and hated that there was exotics attached to it. It was so bad. Now you could say, what about raids? Again, I think endgame pinnacle content like raids should have a chase weapon.
Conversation doesn't surround that because we're all too focused on the checklist. We don't really care if the activity is that fun. It would be nice if it's really.
And again, also I think we're mixing things around because checklists. It's the seasonal content is just boring anyways. It's a complaint most of the community have, is that seasons are boring. So let's not merge two different arguments. If it was a fun activity that the community liked, then they would chase exotics.
Fun, but what we actually care about is getting our 5 deep sights and getting that craftable roll. And for the most part, we are willing to jump on that treadmill, at least temporarily, every single season to get those craftable rolls.
I honestly just do the basics, and then I grab my free and order every week, and that's pretty much, or I spam engrams, and then I craft. Like, I've crafted all the Season of the Witch weapons doing that, and I have no interest in actually using most of them except for like Ermite, and that's about it.
You see, weapon crafting goes hand in hand with the seasonal model. And if Bungie ended up turning around and making everything RNG related, then the focus would be on the activity. And then not only would the focus be on the activity, the focus would then be on the weapon. Does this weapon even have RNG rolls worth grinding for?
And that's the thing. I think that's why seasonal weapons should be the only thing that has craftable, because most of the time these weapons are very meh. The exception is like Ermite is a fantastic fusion rifle. It is juiced. But then you have the Strand rocket launcher, who I don't even know what its name is because it's so trash and garbage that it's not even serviceable. But if you are a returning player, that might be the only kind of rocket that you can guarantee get a somewhat decent roll with. That might be the only rocket you can use. For a new player or a casual, that is serviceable. For me, I have like years of god rolls that I could use over that trash can.
Now, some would argue and say that the craftable version possesses that same question. However, with the craftable roll, we have freedom, or at least the illusion of freedom. We know what might not be a god roll today could be a god roll tomorrow. Therefore, we take that craftable weapon, and we put it in the vault, and we wait.
I've stopped crafting weapons that, like, some of the Seasonal Witch weapons I haven't even crafted because I know I'll never touch it. And we don't have enough space to just hold all these craftable weapons anyways.
Whenever it does roll around to being a meta weapon. You see, ideally, guys, Bungie wants everyone on the same page. They want everyone to have access to the new weapons with the new rolls without really separating that player that put in 1,000 hours in that activity versus the player that put in 10. Dude, it meant something back inside of D1 when I saw someone with a grasp of Malak. I was like, yo, you got that perfect counter.
I think there's also a little bit of, again, glasses. So you could farm Grass and Malak in just a basic Nightfall. There was no Grandmaster. It was just anyone can do it. Anyone could have farmed for Grass and Malak in the casual playlist. Like, so this thing of like, oh, it was really hard to do. It was actually very easy to kill and farm the boss to get Grass and Malak. It was not hard to get. You could get hundreds and hundreds of rolls of these. Fairly easy. Like, the community found the way to cheese it. The community was cheesing it. A lot of people had this gun. There was no... I think we're trying to push D1 up higher than what it really is. Because, again, stuff like this, it was not as hard as it is in some parts of D2. I would say trying to get a god roll of an adept GM weapon is much harder than getting a god roll of Grass and Malak. 100%. Nothing else. We're living in a fantasy world where we're trying to be like, wow, he got a god roll. Man, he's the greatest. I don't know. No, most people were more impressed about the random galley than they were the Grass and Malak, because most of everyone who knew or wanted one got a Grass and Malak.
Balance roll? How? And you were truly envious of that person. And you would
again
jump on that grind to get that thing. But the RNG gods either blessed you or it didn't. And when it did,
I mean, again, yeah, but I never went and dropped. There's this whole envious word being thrown here. I don't know how many people really, it's even like emblems nowadays. Like how many people see titles or emblems and are like, man, I'm envious of you. I don't think most players care anymore. Mostly because Destiny's been out for such a long time that the number of things to be envious about has just like grown in proportionate that no one actually cares because there's so much crap in the game.
This led to a lot of people complaining. Thus, the pendulum swung the other way. I think the reality is, at this point, guys, weapon crafting is a system that Bungie has built. Would get excited about RNG drops.
Yeah, he's. I guess he said the same thing about me.
How do you expect to get a god roll? Look at how many options you have. Bungie's like, yeah, we're gonna give you every trait combination in the game. Good luck. Destiny has kind of moved away from being a looter shooter to just being a chore list with shooting mechanics. Dude.
I mean, I do think 100% there's too many crafted weapons. And back to he's making a great point of like the checklist. When you go to a new season, there's no reason, like no reprieve. I've never touched that shotgun. There is no reason for me to touch that shotgun because we have Nessa's Oblation, or we have Heritage, or now we have Swordbreaker. Like, there's so many options. There's no reason for me to ever use that weapon. And if there was another slug shotgun, if it didn't have the same perks as any of these, then why would I farm for that when I have a perfect god roll of this weapon? Like, and it's a problem. Also, you could say sunsetting, whatever. I don't advertise sunsetting. But my biggest thing is I'm just saying, I don't think we should have had all these weapons, like raids. This was seasonal. I think returning weapons, like the Aquilos weapons, shouldn't have been craftable. Or it shouldn't have had enhanced perks. Because honestly, no one's going out of their way to craft Aquilos and be like, oh, it's a god roll. Like, no one's complaining about this shotgun. I don't think anyone cares.
Dude, it was wild back in Destiny 1 when you were turning in a blue.
It's true.
And it suddenly became an exotic. And again,
you know what's also wild that no one wants to talk about? You could turn in an exotic engram, and also you got a blue. But we don't want to talk about that part of Destiny 1 history, right? We want to live only in the good parts of D1. I think people live in La La Land thinking how great and fantastic D1 was, but they don't remember how many hours they wasted their life, how many times the game screwed you over, how long it took you to get a Vex Mythoclast compared to it is to get now, or how long it took people to get Gallahorn or other exotics. Like, I don't think people understand how bad it was in D1. Everyone wants this dopamine drip, but what they don't realize is how long it takes to even get that drip of dopamine. It's like a crack addict who wants crack but has to wait months to get it. And when they get it, they snort the crap out of it and they're like, more! But then they gotta wait months to get another hit. Like,
as excited as that person was, I guarantee you RNG did not work in everyone's favor like that. It has always been punishing, and this is a tightrope that Bungie has continually walked for years and years, for better or for worse. There are a lot of people that say that weapon crafting shouldn't have happened. There are a lot of people that think
I think weapon crafting 100% should have just been seasonal, or should have been the ritual loot for the casuals, or just the world drops.
that exotics should have never been focusable, that you should never...
I agree. I think this... I don't think anyone really wanted this, except for casuals. I'm going to be in the camp that I think this was a bad idea, personally, because it was like, I just pop my engrams and that's it. Like, I have no reason to touch a Legend Lost Sector. And if I get an engram to drop, there's just nothing knowing that I'm just going to get a roll. I also think getting 20,000 exotic drops from Grandmaster is also another moot point, because when it's double loot, you get like 2 or 3 exotics, and it's like, why do I care?
Been able to go after exotics specifically from a lost sector, that there shouldn't be any bad luck protection. But my assessment of all of this, guys, is that it's too late to walk things back.
Yeah, we're not going back.
Something going the game for Destiny 2. I know you don't want to hear this, but this is why we are going to need a Destiny 3.
I'm going to end the video there because I think that's copium. I think the D2 community is smoking copium. Everyone who thinks that we need a D3, I think you need to take off your rose-tinted glasses for D1. I think you need to lay off the copium. Or hopium, should I say, hopium. Bungie, I think, an honest opinion, I think Bungie's having the Halo effect right now. The Halo effect to me with Bungie is that they did Halo for so many years and that they wanted to do something different. They haven't even tried to work with Microsoft. They haven't hinted at interest of even wanting to go back to Halo. And I think we're seeing that with Destiny. I think we're going to get to the point where Destiny is going to live its course for a while, and they're going to focus on Marathon and whatever mobile and other games that they have planned with PlayStation. They are having the Halo effect where they want to put their eggs and their baskets somewhere else. They will touch Destiny needed to keep it going, and that's, I think, what episodes are. A little to kind of string it out without having expansions. But I think this is hopium. Opium and copium, right? I don't think we'll see Destiny 3 for at least a couple more years. Because I think they're really going to push Marathon. I think they're going to really push their new games because I think they're having the Halo effect where they're not coming out and saying they're done with Destiny, but I think they're done with Destiny, right? You can only do something for so long. Like, look at Warframe. Warframe, the DE, Digital Entertainment, or I think that's what they represent. DE, who made Warframe, is now making an entirely different game. They've been doing Warframe for almost as long as Destiny has. Like Bungie is with Destiny. But they're doing something new. And I think that's the burnout, right? They're burnt out on Destiny. And so what people need to realize is I think also crafting has to do with that, right? Crafting is easier for Bungie to tweak. Crafting is easier across the board to control perks. Crafting is just the easy button for them to change things. Everyone has these specific roles. Boop, we'll just change those. We'll tweak those guns. Boop, easy. I think I think the ship is sailing with Destiny into the sunset for the time being. And I think this is not going to happen. So if you're on the hopium copium, you better buckle in because you're going to be sailing into the sunset with a small group of people. I'm just saying. That's why I've moved to play other games. I think the only thing that they can do is future seasons. They stop doing raid craftable weapons, but they won't because, again, crafting is their way to service Destiny where they can pull in casuals to play so we can keep the life of the game going when eventually the hardcore start trickling away from it. And I think that's what happens seasonally. The hardcores eventually just kind of take a break. Like me, I take a break. I've been playing Cyberpunk. I'm interested to see what you guys think. Let me know in the comments down below. Again, I know I didn't really watch a whole lot of this. It is kind of like the foundation for the talk for the video. But overall, I wanted to give my take on weapon crafting. I think it definitely did have some negative impact, especially raids. I think raids should have never been craftable. I don't think anyone asked for that when they introduced it into like WoW. I was dumbstruck. I think everyone liked having adept versions with like raids for returning raids and stuff like that. Like Vault Glass was awesome. Like, I think people like that. I think craftable rolls was too far, in my opinion. But again, let me know in the comments down below. That's my opinion on crafting. I think the Pandora's box has been opened. There's no putting it back except for making tweaks, like only seasonal is craftable in the future. And I think that's about as much as they can do. I think exotics have been out for too long, the way they are. I don't think there's changing it except for maybe adding some into raids outside of the weapons, and then maybe that's as much as I can think. I do thank you guys. I appreciate you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, don't forget to be the best version of yourself. And game out. Boop, 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 boop.